Our next guest comes to us from Atlanta, Georgia. He's a 23 veteran of the Army, a major, an Eagle Scout, maybe even more importantly, an Eagle Scout. He founded the Frederick Douglass Foundation in 2008, and if you go to their website, TFDF, is that right? TFDF.com, you'll see a 30-second video where he says, this is what we stand for: family, freedom, and life. If you don't believe in these things, you're in the wrong place, and we're not going to support you. Don't come here for support. He's a great patriot. He reminds me of this quote from President Washington. It was in his farewell address at the end of his second term, which he didn't really give as an address. He published it in a paper. But it goes like this: of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of man and citizens. The mere politician, with the pious man, ought to respect and cherish them. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public felicity. Let it be simply asked, where is their security for property, for reparation for life, if the sense of religion obligation desert the oaths, which are the instruments of investigation in the courts of justice? Without religion, whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason, experience, both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in the exclusion of religious principle. Here's a man that stands for religious principle, Tim Johnson, a man I hope I can call my friend.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? No, how's everybody doing? Let's try this one more time. How's everybody doing? I just wanted to make sure you all are still awake. Because one of the things that I think is important is I sometimes believe that we take liberty for granted. Freedom is not free. How many of you ever heard that? How many of you? How many of you ever heard freedom is not free? It's not free. But let me start off with what I always do, because my wife may see this video and I want to make sure that I don't get in trouble with her. That's a smart man, don't you think? The first thing, I gotta get close. The first thing I want to do is acknowledge Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Is that okay with everybody? I don't start off any presentation that I make, and I make plenty of them, without first acknowledging Jesus Christ as the head of my life. When you go into a battle such as politics, it is important to make sure that you have your faith intact. Too often times we see, and Tim is going to deal with this as he has already been dealing with this, that your faith is what's going to get you through. Because the enemy is going to attack you from the left and the right, the north and the south. That's their job. The second thing I always do is I acknowledge first and foremost my wife, to let her know how much I appreciate her, and I appreciate Tim's wife and all that she has done and all that she will continue to do supporting him. Let's give her a round of applause. I've got two more things to do, and I promise I'm not going to be up here forever, but I have to do these things. For all the veterans that are in this room, would you please stand? Every veteran that's in this room. Any veterans? We owe these men and women a debt of gratitude that our nation has never fully paid them back. And why is this election so important? Because too many of my peers, too many of my brothers and sisters who have served honorably in the United States military have never been truly been treated the way they should have. We've got to make sure that we make some changes, and that's why it's important to send Tim to the U.S. Senate. We've got to have a champion. But let me get to the heart of what I want to say to you all. And as I said, I'm not going to be up here long. If you notice something that has already taken place, what Rob has been doing is Rob brought up the Constitution Party leader. He had an opportunity to bring up the Utah Tea Party leader. He had an opportunity to acknowledge the 9/12 leader. And if you notice, there's something to be said about a person who can say that they're just announcing that they're running for the U.S. Senate. And in a nation that seems to be always torn apart, they're bringing all these organizations together. I don't know a whole lot about Utah, but I will tell you right now that I believe Utah is like every other state in the union in the fact that we need to have somebody who knows how to unify the people and not create more divisions among the people. You see, sometimes we spend a lot of time talking, and I've shared with them as we were on the radio today that we spend a lot of time talking. But Tim has been out there working. And what you want in somebody that's going to be a leader of this state, this great state of Utah, is you want somebody who is actually doing it. One of the challenges that I had with a young lady recently who stayed at my house was I asked her, why did you vote for Obama? And remove their emotion from the conversation, help me understand why you made the decision. When she started to talk, the first thing she said is, I feel. I said, stop. I said, remove the emotion. I want to know the facts. You see, what you have in Tim is somebody that says, this is what I've done. I've been through good days and I've been through bad days. I think all of us here can say we've had our good days and we've had our bad days. The Bible is real clear about that we're going to have good days and bad days. And I want somebody who's representing me in Washington, D.C. to understand my good days and my bad days. I want somebody that's representing me to be able to say that I understand where you're going and I understand the trials and tribulations you've had. You see, here in Utah, you have an opportunity to elect somebody, not somebody that's pretty, and not somebody that has this long resume of all these things they've done, not somebody that's just doing this for the sake of doing it, but somebody that's passionate about this state, somebody that wants to make a difference, somebody that wants to be the type of person that will pick up the phone when you call them. You don't have to go through their secretary and all the rest of those people that work on their staff. Somebody that wants to stay connected to the citizens because he sees himself as a grassroots person. Don't you think it's time that Utah got that? Don't you think it's time that you deserve a person that's truly going to represent your interests and your needs? If you do, then help me say this one thing. Go ahead, you can clap. If you believe this, then join me in repeating this. It's time for Tim. It's time for Tim. It's time for Tim. It's time for Tim. Can we get a little louder? It's time for Tim. It's time for Tim. It's time for Tim. And as you travel throughout this state, you need to say that. It's time for Tim. Orrin Hatch has had his time. He's been there 36 years. If he ain't got it done in 36, he ain't going to get it done in the next 36. Let's just be honest about this. It is not an entitlement to represent the people of Utah. It is supposed to be a privilege. And too many of our elected officials have taken that for granted. So Utah set the standards for the rest of the country. Set the standard and say, we're not looking for somebody that has a resume full of I've done this and I've done this in the political circle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a former vice chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. I can talk all day long about party politics. But I will tell you, my biggest frustration I have with party politics is it's party politics. It's about the establishment. It's about the same old crap. It's about the pecking order. And as Tim told you very early on, he said somebody told him it wasn't his time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you get to decide on his time. Not Orrin Hatch, not the Republican National Committee, not anybody else, but the citizens, the delegates of Utah. Take full advantage of it. Make sure that you let Tim know constantly how much you support him. Let him know how much you support him financially. Let him know how much you support him through prayers. Let him know how much you support him through volunteering. Let him know how much you support him by putting out the yard signs. Let him know how much you support him just by walking up to him and say, thank you for your willingness to run. That's what he needs. That's what's going to change this community. You might ask why I'm here? Because I believe in Tim. I have a national organization. I have chapters all around the country, and pretty soon we're going to have one right here in Utah. And finally, I have to say this. I am not an African American, for all those that want to say that. I'm an American. This is my country. I ain't been to Africa, I ain't lost nothing in Africa, and I ain't going to Africa. 13 stripes, 50 stars. I served 23 years in Uncle Sam's Army, and there is no other country I'm willing to die for but this one. And I bring that up because Tim is my friend. I support him. I want him to do the very best. I want him to be victorious. But I live in Georgia. It's going to take the people here and all your neighbors to not only show up to the caucus, but to vote for him and to keep voting for him until he's got the 60% that he needs in order to take that fight on and win in November. God bless everybody, and thank you.